I coach virtual wholesaling, right? So I have students throughout the country, and I feel like if you're going straight to the systems portion of it, it's kind of like opening up a book and starting to read in chapter 6, right? Like there's things that you have to take care of before, before you even get to the systems. So if somebody's getting started in real estate wholesaling, like one of the first things that we're going to work on is the confidence behind the conversation. You are going to want to know where to find the leads and what platforms to go to and skip trace and what niches to hit and all that stuff, right? Like those are the nuts and bolts. But when I hear systems, for example, it's like you already have a process that's kind of, it may be a little fragmented, and then you're cleaning it up through a system or an SOP, right? Standard operating procedure. And that's where you start tracking KPIs and really fine tune the entire operation. But at the beginning, before you even get to the systems, you have to understand how to have a conversation with the seller.
Welcome to the RealPropPro podcast, where strategy, innovation, and wealth converge to redefine real estate investing.
Hello, and welcome to the RealPropPro podcast. I'm your host, Ian Dietler, fix and flip investor in Sacramento, California. We started this show because getting your first deal and building something that lasts can be difficult. But the right mindset and systems can change everything. At RealPropPro, we coach investors at every level. Our software emphasizes tax deed and tax lien investing, but we also teach fix and flipping, lease options, sub-2 seller financing, multifamily, and so much more. To learn more, please check out RealPropPro.com. Today's guest is Rafael Cortez, organizational psychologist, broker, real estate investor, and founder and host of CEO PULS platform. He's known for helping entrepreneurs replace hustle with systems and build boring 7-figure businesses. Rafael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on the show. You have so much to teach me and our listeners, so I'm so happy you're here.
No, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So on the show, we like to get started talking about where people were born and where did they grow up.
I was born in Yuma, Arizona, which it's south of Phoenix. I'm currently in Phoenix. My main market is Maricopa County.
Okay.
And I moved here about 20 years ago, but I was born and raised in Yuma. I used to be a firefighter down there, and I launched my first business when I left Yuma and transitioned into real estate right around 2009. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that? What was life like getting into like the fire academy and all that stuff? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I did that right out of college. I was one of those kids. I've always kind of shot first and aimed later. So I was one of those, I didn't really have a planned path. I mean, coming from a small town, I went to school in Yuma, but I actually lived in a smaller town south of that, which is San Luis. And you had a handful of options there, from like the general perspective, right? You either became a teacher, a cop, a police officer, a correctional officer. So it was just kind of limited, right? As far as the think in that realm, and I mean that's as far as I could see back then. So I joined the fire department, which I feel was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made, because I met great people through it, and I learned a lot from the people that I was working with at the time, right? And I was 19 years old, and trying to figure out life, and I was an independent man at that point, and I mean there were so many things I didn't know, but it kind of paved the way to the real life per se, right? Because you see a lot of things in the fire department, it's not necessarily always nice and happy. I mean, there's a lot of tragedy, experiences and close calls that you're part of. So I feel like that taught me in a way to just adapt, right? And think a little bigger and appreciate what I had at the time. So I started thinking a little bigger from that. I launched my first business which was a non-emergency medical transportation business in 2006. And I transitioned. I left the fire department for that. So I did that for years. I put together some cash, and in the I started thinking about, hey, I wanna do something else again. The thing that I knew how to do was fix stuff, because I used to work construction back in college and high school during the summers, and I felt comfortable with it. I've always been handy in that sense. So I was like, I'm gonna flip a house, and I got into house flipping in 2009, and a couple of transactions later, I found out about real estate wholesaling, and absolutely fell in love with the process of wholesaling and the idea of it, right? Flipping paper as opposed to swinging hammers and everything else in between. So it's kind of how it all transitioned. But funny enough, it's one thing leads to the next, right?
That's just kind of how life goes. You kind of go to different stages of your life to, first you're kind of just working, and then it sounds like there was a spark for you where you're like, hey, maybe I can turn this into my own company. Can you talk about that early transition from when you were working as a firefighter to thinking differently and being like, hey, maybe I should start a company?
The leap. Yeah, for sure. I had a very interesting conversation with Gino Wigman about this, actually. He wrote his latest book is regarding the entrepreneur leap, right? Like taking the jump and betting on yourself. And a lot of times, I mean, we can be in that comfort zone area. We can be in that place where it's not even comfortable, it's just familiar, right?
Mhm.
And it's hard to switch everything that you have going on, or everything that you're doing, or everything that for something that can be so uncertain, right? Such as betting on yourself and entrepreneurship. I think for me, again, one of my MOs has always been to shoot first and aim later. So I started thinking about the positive things. I started thinking about, the possibilities of, hey, what if I were to take back my time? And at this point, I'm 21, 22 years old, and I'm thinking about the first business. And I mean, I feel like I just got excited about it. I got excited about the idea of being able to launch something. Not that I wasn't happy at the fire department, but it felt like a path to freedom. You know what I mean? Because in any job that you have to be either 9 to 5. You have to work around the hours. You have to do the whole thing, which we all know. It to me, it was, man, if I can do something and I can create. I always found myself in my happiest moments when I was creating something, or being, somewhat taking part in some type of creative process, if it wasn't my own thing, right? So I feel like going back to it, and as entrepreneurs, that's what we are. We're creators. We come in, we figure out solutions for problems, we figure out new perspectives, we think outside the box, and that to me was very attractive at that point in time. So I started doing some research on it, went through the whole business plan thing, went to the SBA, the Small Business Administration for advice and counseling. It's kind of where I met my first indirect mentor or coach. So he just kind of pointed me in the right direction, did some research, and eventually I ended up just, pulling the trigger on it. The interesting thing, which I wasn't expecting, was, or I just didn't think it through. All right, but what I was doing was conflict of interest with the fire department, because I was in non-emergency medical transportations, which was a service that we provided, right? But I didn't know what conflict of interest was. So HR pulls me in, is like, hey, you can't do that. You need to stop doing what you're doing, because it is a conflict of interest with the fire department. And I mean, that's where I really had an issue, because it's like I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm trying to build a dream here, like build from a dream, right? And I feel that's where most people just stop, right? Like something comes that threatens the current lifestyle that you have, and to me, it was more of a fuel to make it work. It was like, well, now I have to make it work, because now I got to leave the fire department. I can't be here if I can't pursue my own desires. And I don't know. I think it might have been a mix of maybe ego at the moment, and and fuel for achievement or whatnot, right? Which on the long run, if you're operating just under that premise, it can be a bad thing. But at that point, it served me well. And so I moved on from the fire department and left. I totally jumped into the business and developing and doing all that stuff. I actually went back to construction to keep making some money while the business picked up and launched. And a year later, I was able to land some contracts. I had a couple of vehicles and just, going through that grind, right, for that first about 18 months. And stabilizing it about 2 years later. So I mean, it was quite a leap, man. It's not definitely I feel like it's not the recommended way to go about building a business, but I mean, it was my way and it worked.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that journey. It's a lot of things to try to get over, a lot of mindset blocks that you worked on to get over and get past, to get that first business started, and then to get into real estate with flipping. Can you also talk about that transition too, from you running the non-emergency medical to the real estate investing side? Can you talk about that transition as well?
Yeah. So again, one of the things that I feel like at the beginning, right, the fuel for me was survival. I was trying to make ends meet. I was trying to just get some cash through the door, and I was really chasing the dollar there, not for the sake of becoming wealthy, but just for the sake of like, man, I gotta make this thing work. So I did that for a few years, and after I started monetizing and I started doing better with the company and started stashing away and putting away some cash, I realized like, man, I can't. It's not growing. The money's not doing anything. It's just, it's sitting there and I'm spending it. I mean, I went and bought a boat. I went, did a few other things that I just wanted to, scratch the itch per se. Right. And it's like, man, if I keep going at this rate, I'm just going to be working for the toys and like, it's not smart. So I have to invest in something. I didn't know the stock market. Like I said, what I knew how to do was swing a hammer. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go buy a beat up property and fix it. And that's what I did. I mean, I worked on the first couple of deals myself. I mean, I had the bright idea of doing the work myself, going in there and then, oh, cool, I'll swap out the kitchen. I used to work for a master carpenter at one point. I used to do masonry and roof and plumbing and all that stuff, right? So I wasn't an expert. I'm still not an expert, but I kind of knew my way around, the issues. So I was like, all right, cool, I can figure this out. So most of the work I did myself. On the first couple of flips, I did hire some stuff out that was more complicated. So needless to say, it took me forever to complete the flips. And so I was like, man, this thing takes forever. I was spending a lot more money than I should have. The time was just killing the ROI, and I wasn't seeing that yet because I didn't know what I was doing. And so there was a lot of things, right, that it just, we don't know what we don't know. And at that point, it was super green, man. So I did that, and I made a couple $1,000 on the first flip. And then I did a little better on the second flip. Not much better. I think maybe I'm talking like a $4,000 profit or something. This is on a flip. I was like, how can people live off of this thing? Yeah. But I wasn't doing, the research that you need to do. I wasn't comping the properties. I was just kind of like, oh, cool. I mean, that one looks like a fun project. Let's jump into that. So I did that for a few months. And then, like I said, I came across a wholesale fee. Assignment fee in one of the settlement statements, one of the properties that I bought. So I called the guy up and I asked him, I was like, dude, what's this $18,000 thing here? I was like, that's what he paid me for the property. He's like, dude, bro, I made 5 on this. Yeah. Like, you made 18? He thought I was going to be upset about it. But I wasn't. I was like, show me how to do that. So he just kind of pointed me in the right direction, gave me a couple of podcasts to listen to. And I mean, from that point forward, man, I leaned into it harder. I started thinking about selling the transportation business. I went on and did a couple more flips and whatnot in a better fashion because now I knew a little bit more about it, did better on those. But yeah, it was just, learning lessons, right, at the beginning. And I'm just kind of going over the highlights, but but I mean, there was a lot of like low points, going through that learning process and that learning curve. I ended up working with Sean Terry, which is one of the OGs in the wholesaling space, but I was with his acquisitions guy. So I ended up selling the business. When I sold the business, he puts out an ad looking for an acquisitions guy. So I submit for it, interview with him, and then I ended up spending a few years in his company, and I mean just fast forward the learning curve by at least 10 years, man. So I got exposed to a lot of stuff early on, and the repetitions really is what made the thing stick, man. So yeah, I mean, you find a vehicle like real estate, and it's hard to look away from it.
Wow, that's amazing that you had that opportunity to learn
Yeah.
with some of the best in the business. I think that's so important for people that are new or just trying to ramp up, kind of like where you were at that point where you'd done a little bit of transactions, you'd done some real estate, but it was time for you to scale up and ramp up major. And what you did is you just got around the right people. You started to do work for or provide services for some of the
Yeah.
best people in the business. So I always encourage our students and our listeners that if you want to get into something, that's a great way to get into it, right? You want to be around the best people in the business. You want to be around the experienced people, the people that have made these mistakes so that you can learn from them and you don't have to.
Yeah. Cut the learning
So
curve.
exactly. So you say hustle is a season, not a strategy. If you were to help a wholesaler who's doing about 1 or 2 deals a month, what systems would you install to make their business boring and scalable?
We actually do that every day in the community. So I coach virtual wholesaling, right? So I have students throughout the country, and I feel like if you're going straight to the systems portion of it, it's kind of like opening up a book and starting to read in chapter 6.
Okay.
Right? Like there's things that you have to take care of before, before you even get to the systems. So if somebody's getting started in real estate wholesaling, like one of the first things that we're going to work on, or I would have them work on, is the confidence behind the conversation. You are going to want to know where to find the leads, and what platforms to go to, and skip trace, and what niches to hit, and all that stuff, right? Like those are the nuts and bolts. But when I hear systems, for example, it's like you already have a process that's kind of, it may be a little fragmented, and then you're cleaning it up through a system, or an SOP, right? Standard operating procedure. And that's where you start tracking KPIs and really fine tune the entire operation. But at the beginning, before you even get to the systems, you have to understand how to have a conversation with a seller, right? You have to understand how do I comp a deal? How do I figure out whether or not it's a good market to get into, and put time and effort into it, figure out if my numbers are right. So it's more of a methodical approach to problem solving, as opposed to having all the systems in place at the beginning. And then it becomes that's the hustle part of that phrase, right? Hustle is a season. We're doing all these things, right? It's not a business strategy. The business strategy comes in when you start to fine tune the business after you have your process in place, or your actions in place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, from experience, that's exactly what I've experienced in my journey through, dabbling a little bit in wholesaling, and then mostly getting into fix and flipping. You definitely have to have a lot of knowledge. You have to know how to comp properties, like you said. A lot of people don't know exactly how much rehab costs is going to be on any different item. So like you said, that's something that students or people that are new have to learn. And so can you explain to the listeners how maybe a new person, let's say they want to get into wholesaling and they know nothing, where would you tell them to start? I know you kind of mentioned it before, but if you can kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I've done is I mean, I have a framework, right? It's a methodical. It's just a process to go. It's the order of things that you kind of have to follow, and it's the PULS framework, PULS. So the P stands for prospecting. You got to figure out of course, you have to prospect. In that prospecting stage, you're going to be sourcing your leads, and then you're going to be pre-qualifying. Okay, so source and convert. That's what happens in the prospecting stage. For sourcing leads, and if you're listening to the episode, take some notes. There's paid and free, ways of marketing. There's do it yourself and done for you types of marketing. I feel like even one mistake that I've seen quite a bit is, people have, somebody wants to get into wholesaling, right? And then, I have $20,000-$30,000 that I want to invest somewhere. I want to invest it into wholesaling, in the marketing. But they haven't had any seller conversations yet. Yet they want to put $10,000 into marketing to find the best leads and coming at you and whatnot. If you haven't had any seller conversations, and you're spending money on marketing, you are going to be wasting your marketing dollars. If you're going to be hiring somebody to come and close for you, but you have no idea, you haven't worked the system yet or the process, you haven't, done, a couple of deals on cycles, or cycles of deals, it's easy to be taken advantage of and losing the money. I mean, basically you're just tossing the money away. So you have to grind it out for a little bit, just enough that you're at least dangerous in the different areas of it. So the reason I say that is because people get, I don't want to call people. I don't want to have conversations with people. I don't want to, talk to people. I don't want to we are in the people business. Yeah. If that's your mindset around getting into wholesaling, you're going to waste your time. It doesn't work. Right, go find something in the stock market or something, but it's not. At least for this industry, the failure rate is incredibly high if you're not willing to do a certain set of things. At the top of the list is going to be having conversations with sellers. So one of the things that somebody's getting into the space, right, or wholesaling, I do push them to cold call, and I know it's not like the sexiest method for lead generation, but there's so many advantages to it. I mean, once you get rejected by 100 people, it doesn't hurt as much anymore. So they'll test you on the conversation. They'll test you on the rebuttals. They'll test you on running comps. And it's a way of putting in the reps without spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in marketing that's not going to go anywhere. So it's for the sake of repetitions and experience, it's one of the first things that I would encourage somebody to start doing. Like, be comfortable with making seller conversations. Door knocking, man. Door knocking taught me so much back in the day. As far as building a thick skin, yeah. I mean, it's about as drastic as you can get, I feel. So there's ways of pulling lists. There's a really good software out there. I mean, we have PropStream. You have batch leads. I mean, there's different data providers out there where you can pull lists. One of them, one of the ones that I'm liking a lot right now, is called Connected Investors. So go connectedinvestors.com. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they have stacks of so they'll stack up the pain points, right? So you have like code violations, you have your tax default, you have your absentee owners, you have all those, but you can stack it right there. It's just easy to manage. You can also run comps off of that software. So it has a smart comp feature, which is actually pretty decent if you're in disclosure states. And so that would be one of the platforms on the prospecting side, right? You pull the lists, you can skip trace through there as well, and then you start hammering out those calls. That's one way of doing it. Another way of getting lists, if you don't have the budget to come in and then pay $100 for software a month, you can go to title companies. Go to your marketing agents, not the escrow agents, but the marketing person of the title companies in your backyard or whatever market you're tapping into, and tell them, hey, listen, I'm getting ready to launch a big marketing campaign in your area. I need help with the marketing. Do you guys have lists, right? Do you have pre-foreclosure lists, code violations lists? Sometimes they'll provide you those. One list that they're able to get their hands on that not a lot of people hit is the 60 days late list. So it's not in foreclosure. So it hasn't been hit by everybody and their mom. They're 60-day late. So they're 2 payments past due on their mortgage, right? So they're not in pre-foreclosure yet, but they're on their way there. So it's one of the lists that you can catch on early. And the title companies will give you this information for free. most of them will actually give it to you skip traced, meaning that it's already got phone numbers attached to it, right? So you can do that. It's a really good resource for data. And again, just set up a Google number or pay for a smartphone number, just a dedicated line. I wouldn't recommend calling from your own personal cell phone number because it gets messy and you don't want your number being out there. But have a dedicated business line, right? Just a virtual number or something, and start having calling these people out. There's so many scripts out there that you can follow for finding out whether or not somebody wants to sell their property. So that's on the prospecting side, right? The second part is going to be the underwriting, the U, right? So it's prospect, underwrite. On the underwriting, obviously you got to run comps, figure out, once you have an interested party, you have somebody who wants to sell their property, you're going to run comparables and see, what the values of the property are, and then what can you offer for it, right? So I'm giving you just kind of like a 30,000 foot view of the skeleton, right, of the wholesale biz. But you can use the same platforms. You can go if you don't have the budget to pay for a platform, you can go to Zillow, you can go to Redfin, Realtor.com, right? The simplest way to do it is look at estimated values. Take the 3 because it's going to give you estimated values in each one. Just kind of take an average of that. You're going to be close to. It's not going to be an exact number, but it's going to be better than just kind of throwing a number out there without any reference, right? So that's one way of running numbers on a property really quick and free, right? From that point forward, you have to work your math and make sure that you have a maximum allowable offer. So what you're doing right now is you're underwriting the property, seeing whether or not you're able to do anything with it based off of what they're asking and the equity that the property has. I like PropStream is really good. I mean, also it gives you estimated equity on deals and whatnot, so you don't waste your time. Again, at the beginning, because we don't have this steadiness, we don't have this sustainability in place yet. I mean, we're just kind of working through the noise of all the deals, right? We're digging through all the records, we're the calls and probably working all the leads and everything inside us, just a spreadsheet or something. Make sure that you have somewhere to keep track of whatever leads you're calling. But it can be messy at first if you don't cut the learning curve with go to, for example, a mentor that can give you everything. In terms of how to stay organized, right? But those are the first 2 sections of it. You have to underwrite the property. To underwrite the property, you're not an appraiser. You're not a contractor. So don't spend 2 days figuring out or walking the property to see how much it's going to be in wood and how much the kitchen is going to cost down to, the square foot and all that stuff. Do a ballpark figure. So we're ballparking figures on estimates. For example, a standard number that I use, and this is nationwide, $30 a square foot, right? So if a property is 1,000 square feet, my just boilerplate type of estimate for a rehab right out the gate is going to be 30,000, right? And so on and so forth. I mean, you can adjust. There's ways of adjusting, and I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but point being is you don't have to be super dialed in when it comes, down to the, how many hundreds of dollars it's going to cost, right, to fix this property. Just ballpark that. Work your math. The math is simple. We take ARV, so whatever the comparable value is, times 70% minus rehab minus my profit, right? That's how I work the math. And then you end up with a maximum allowable offer. That number, you have to respect that number. It's not going to be the sexiest number. Especially if you're new in the industry, you're going to look at that number as like, how can somebody sell for that number? The thing is that people have problems other than the amount of cash that they're going to get for the property. They could get retail value for the property or go high. They will go to an agent. They wouldn't come to you. So they're looking for time and convenience. They're looking for the speed that we can give them through a close, through an assignment. The fact that they don't have to fix a property, they don't have to do anything like that. Sometimes they want to stay in the property. They want to get paid and stay in the property for a couple of months. So we'll do a post-possession or a couple of weeks. So there's so many different ways to work around the structure of the deal when the amount of the money is not the big thing, right? So just to kind of put things in context, we're about 3 to 5% of the people that want to sell their property are going to be a fit to sell it to us. Everybody else can probably sell retail. right? And we're not looking for those people. We're looking for the people that they can't sell retail because they're, the property's in extremely bad condition. They're hoarders. They can't do walkthroughs. They need to relocate in, 2-3 weeks. So there's always situational drivers right behind those decisions. So keep that in mind as you're doing acquisitions on this. And that's going to be the underwriting and the L's for locking. So you have to lock up the deal. You go through a purchase agreement, purchase contract. There's a specific purchase agreement for real estate wholesaling. So again, depending on where you're getting your information from or what mentor you have, you're going to usually have a contract. For acquisitions, you go through this discovery conversation and find out how you can actually solve a problem. We're not there to convince them. We're not there to give them pie in the sky or anything. It's like if there's a solution to a problem that they have, we're gonna end up walking away with the deal. If not, great. You just continue on prospecting, right? Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. The S comes from selling. So once you have your contract signed. Now you're legal in your contract, you go into the dispo side, right? Disposition, so you sell the deal. What you're selling is your equitable interest. So you're selling the contract, you're not selling the property, right? And I feel like it's a misconception, especially when people are new to the industry. We're not selling the actual property, we're selling our equity. We're selling the vested interest we have in that contract for a markup, right? And this is where you add $15,000, $20,000, or depending on the amount of the deal. And the amount of the work that you're going to be doing on the back end that makes the deal sellable, right? You have to leave enough room in it for the cash buyer. You have to, if not, it's not going to sell. So when you go back to that locking stage and you're negotiating the deal and then you're looking at your maximum allowable offer, just think about how awkward the conversation is going to be if you lock it up too high. And you have to come back and tell the seller, hey, listen, I can't do that number that I told you because it was too much. And I can't perform on it, right? So think about that. Just be up and honest, and it's better to be transparent from the get-go than to come back and switch terms on people like that. You know what I mean? The sad thing is that I feel like, I don't know, there's agencies or a lot of people use it out, use it as a strategy. Where they'll lock up a deal and then the dumb ad will just come back and renege the price later. I don't know. It's not best practices to me, right? But keep that in mind. So anyways, you're gonna do a markup on the disposition side or the sales stage, and then assign it over to your cash buyers. For cash buyers, man, there's platforms out there that are incredibly effective right now. Of course, you have your OGs in the space, which Investor Lift is one of them. We have Investor Lift Cartel, and we use that, for every deal. Another one is Investor Base. I don't know if you're familiar with that, investorbase.com. Yeah. So those guys are doing wonderful things too. They're moving really, really fast in terms of improvements.
Real quick, just jump on Investor Base too. They also have buy and hold investors on there as well. Yeah. So if you have something that maybe is a little bit more for a flipper, you might be able to share your disposition property with someone that's doing buy and holds in that area. So just a quick plug for that. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah, the website for those guys is goinvestorbase.com. And but they're doing well. As far as developments and saying the data they have, they're doing pretty good on the cleaning up the data and all that stuff. So you basically type in an address on there and then it'll spit out, a couple hundred buyers that you could call right away. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier than back in 2012, 13 when I started wholesaling, right? It's like, man, it was just a pain to sell deals back then because you didn't know who the buyers were. Mm-hmm. You really had to be out there in meetups and shaking hands and having conversations like that, because skip tracing and just pulling all the data that we have available now wasn't a thing. So anyways, right? You're on that same sell stage. It's that's where you go and talk to the title company too. You open escrow with them. You are gonna sell the deal through an assignment, right? Which is that second leg of the transaction, and then the last part is the E for elevate. I feel like this is one of the things that happens for the most part, right? Somebody goes through the entire process. They find a seller, they get it under contract, find a buyer, they boom, say close a deal, they get the wire, and then boom, they go right back to step one, and do it all over again. If you do not improve your business intentionally, it's always going to stay the same. It's going to take you forever to get better, right? Because you're not doing it intentionally. So one of the things that we do is actually after every deal is like, we'll ask ourselves the question, okay, what could we have done better? Did we leave money on the table? And if so, why? Right? And how can we not do that again? How can we improve on the next, deal based off of, this? So we do a deal, and this is coming straight up from my training at the fire department. We would have a debrief session right after the calls, right? And it's more of a personal practice. But it's like, okay, cool. What went well and what didn't go well? So we go on deals now. My team and I, we go through, okay, what happened? How did we get it? Where did it come from? We'll start looking at the KPIs, the key performance indicators. What campaign was it coming from? How many touches did it take us to get this person? What was the spread? That type of stuff, right? So we start improving and tweaking all those little numbers, but it leads directly to the bottom line. So you have to hit that last stage, right? The elevate stage, because that's where you're measuring and you're improving your company. So it's when it comes to a framework, like it's not a one thing that you can do to kind of like have the magic, shift in business. It's going to be a compilation of things, and you just have to be, even if you're getting into the business and new, to it all, just have it in your radar, right? Have it in your radar that you're going to have different pieces to it. So as you're going through it and you're gaining experience, you know where to plug that experience into. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And just to kind of branch off that last part, not only can you do your own kind of self-assessment of what was good and what could have been improved, it's also a great idea to have someone that you know and trust, another investor,
Yeah.
a mentor, some coach that you pay for to give you feedback and really dive into the weeds, because that type of feedback's going to be, it's not going to have your point of view on it, right? It's going to have the outsider looking in, telling you what you could have done better. So can you talk a little bit about how important it is to have the right people around you, mentors, coaches, even just other investors that you have a really good relationship with?
Dude, yes. Do not be on an island by yourself.
Yes.
It's easy. It's real easy to be on an island by yourself. You may start wholesaling, you may start, whatever vertical you're in. If you jump into entrepreneurship, people around you are going to see you, right? Like, oh, he's doing things, he's, whatever, he's busy, and they're like, oh, she's busy. But they're not like, nobody's going to know the inner pains if they're not in a, similar type of situation. So what happens is that if you put yourself on an island, it gets really quiet. And all you have is you and your thoughts of defeat when things are not going, the right way. Your thoughts of need for validation when things are going the right way. So it can be a very challenging thing, but it on a worse term, I think it can be one of the things that breaks you if you're not putting yourself in rooms with other people that are having similar issues that you can talk through, right? So it is very important to your point. It's very important to stay surrounded. Go to meetups. I mean, just go to meetup.com, right? And then look up real estate investor meetups in my backyard, in my hometown, wherever you're at. I guarantee you there's going to be 10, 15, 20 of those, happening a week. Phoenix, for example, is a very active market. We have so many of those that happen here on a regular basis. And then you find a handful of those that I like going, to that one on a monthly, and you start meeting the people, you start having conversations with them and networking, right? Not networking for the sake of pitching your wholesale skills, but for the sake of understanding who can you partner up with. Who can you JV with? You're going to find other wholesalers in those meetups. One really easy way to getting into those those wholesaler or those deals is to co-wholesale something. For example, somebody has a deal that they need to push, right? And you started building your buyers list. You can send it out to your buyers list with the wholesaler's approval, and then you do a JV agreement, right? So now you have a deal that you can push forward. You're adding value to your buyer. Granted, your spread is not going to be, your profit is not going to be 15, 20K, but you can make a couple $1,000s from pushing a deal. So it's stuff like that, but it doesn't happen if you don't reach out to the people in your community. That's one. Find ways of cutting the learning curve. Again, squad up, team up with somebody who's already doing it. If you have the ability to do so. If not, man, I wish I would have paid for mentorship way before I did. I wish I would have joined masterminds way before I did. There was a lot. I mean, I spent a lot of years just trying to figure out things by myself. And dude, I'm telling you, we just don't know what we don't know. When you put yourself in a room where the conversation is of growth, is problem solving. One, it changes your context. It changes the idea, the way that you see things, and you approach solutions. But two, it becomes a power network. So now you have. I'll give you a case in point. I don't know how it happened. Miracle, but I locked up a golf course. This is my first year into wholesaling. I locked up a golf course and I was like, man, I'm gonna kill it with this deal. It's a freaking golf course, dude. I don't have buyers for a golf course. And I was on my island. I didn't have a network around me. I didn't have, somebody I could talk to about it. And I wasn't even thinking that way. That's the thing. That's why I keep kicking myself in the ass for that, because I wasn't thinking about, okay, who can I reach out to that may have an answer? It was like, no, I was trying to figure stuff out. And it was me. That's a prime example of somebody being on an island. It was just me thinking about my own problem and trying to figure out my problem by myself. So anyways, long story short, I lose the contract. I wasn't able to fulfill. I couldn't find a buyer. So I lost the golf course. And dude comes in right after me and moves it, makes $1.3 million on that deal. And this is about 3 months later after I lost the deal. So I'm telling you, like, it's painful to put yourself on an island. So reach out to meetups that are in your backyard. If you have a good mentor that you can lean on, I was like, yeah, trust me, they've gone through. If they're good mentors, they've gone through the highs, the lows. They understand it, to a T, and you want that in your corner. You know what I mean? I can't emphasize that enough. Masterminds are huge, man. Masterminds absolutely changed my life. Yeah.
I totally agree. I think it's so important to be around those type of people. And like you said, it just changes the way that you think and see things. You may not know how to sell golf courses, but if you had the right network around you, you probably could have found either someone that was interested in buying it or someone that knows someone else that's interested in buying it. So
yeah, I wouldn't have lost it now. I can tell you that much. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all of that great information, the PULS framework, awesome stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kind of switching gears a little bit, I wanted to get into some of this organizational psychologist stuff. Can you explain to the listeners what that is and how you actually implement some of those concepts?
Yeah. So my career is organizational psychologist. Right. And I do have an organizational psychology practice, and I consult businesses in different verticals, not just real estate. I choose real estate to coach and mentor in because entrepreneurship usually gravitates to the real estate space. It's just like the demographic in it. But as an organizational psychologist, basically what you're doing is you're putting systems and people together. Again, after you have, you got to have this startup, this framework, this set of activities, and then you start fine tuning. You start creating standard operating procedures behind them. You start to hire based off of strengths, behavioral strengths, actually. And there's basically you have the human element on this side, and then you have the systems and operations. You got to make it work, right? You got to make it all click. So I feel like one of the oldest phrases in that realm is the right butts in the right seats. That's how we do it, right? Like, so we'll do, for example, we'll deploy hiring behavioral assessments and see what people are kind of inclined to as a natural strength, as opposed to forcing somebody that, for example, they may be an extrovert, right? And I'm going to put them in front of a computer looking at spreadsheets all day long. Although the IQ, and they may be perfectly fine, right, as far as intelligence goes and capabilities and skill sets to do it, the natural inclination is to be people oriented for somebody like that. They are going to burn out. They usually burn out within a matter of like 3-4 months. So it's longevity, right? It's a retention. It's putting people in a space where, one, they can perform well based on their skill sets, but two, it lines up to their natural strengths. So one crazy thing here is the more that we adapt to a situation or an environment that's not in our natural set, the more stress we create, mental stress, right? So think about it. For example, if you're an introvert, right, and I'll just stick to that analogy, and you go to this very social place, and you end up having to work as a MC for the very social place, but you're naturally an introvert and you just hate people. You don't want to talk to, people all day long. How exhausted do you think that is? Or exhausting do you think that is for somebody, right? So yeah, you might be able to do it, and then but wears you out. So getting rid of those variances is part of what we do in the organizational psychology space, right? The other is optimizing the systems, the processes, getting rid of waste, getting rid of dualities in the operation itself. And doing more with less. How can we optimize something without having to spend more money, right? With all, what we already have, using the human element into it, the human capital that we already have in the business, and then leaning into that portion of it. So it's really working from both angles. Usually when you have like engineering or something like that, you're working with the mechanical side. As an IELTS psychologist, I work with the mindset, the mental aspect of it, and then the operation side as well.
Wow, that's all very interesting stuff. Thank you for sharing. Do you help companies with automations, and are you using any AI to kind of get some of the maybe mundane and repetitive tasks? Are you able to get AI to maybe do some of that stuff? And where do you see AI going from here?
I think if you're not incorporating AI somehow, some way into your business, you're going to be left behind really fast. Maybe not in the next 3 months, but it's definitely going to happen within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's something that's already here. It's not even coming. It's already here, right? And you have the top producers out there. The people who are kind of ahead of the curve are already deploying AI on follow-up sequences and stuff like that. We're using a mix. For example, I can tell you that within the business, I'm using a mix of standard SOPs and follow-up sequences incorporated with AI. Right. So it's not all AI because I still want to have manual control of what goes out. But the responses, they can become very conversational. It's pretty interesting how naturally it flows too. If you're able to train AI and put some parameters into a conversational algorithm, you don't even need a lead manager. Like one of the things when I rolled AI into it, the responses from follow-up sequences, tripled. It's insane. So there's money in your database. A lot of times we lose it because the follow-up is not there. So if you have a regular follow-up sequence, maybe they'll respond, maybe they won't. But when you roll out AI into it, at least the way that we did it, it's reviving a lot of those leads, it's bringing back a lot of those leads. I think we just locked up a deal in Texas from a follow-up sequence that has AI built into it, but it's been sitting there for months. So it hadn't, nothing had, so it monetizes, right? But it absolutely is, I think it's imperative, right? At least, not that you have to understand it to a T and know all the nuisances of it and whatnot, but start getting familiar with it. We use Go High Level. We build out, I build out Go High Level for the sake of systems, processes, automations, KPIs, and everything. So I used to have Podio. I build out Podio, and then I do my own build outs in GHL. And it's just night and day, having something like that in place. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love using GHL. It's a great software. It's very powerful. It's almost similar to how overwhelming Salesforce can be for sales and marketing, but
Yeah.
a little bit different, but still kind of the same. Each week we do a free book giveaway. To enter, all you have to do is like this episode and comment which of these books you would like to have. And 5 days after the air date, we'll pick one lucky winner and they'll get it shipped free to their house. Some of the options we have are The E-Myth, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Multifamily Millionaire, The Time Wealthy Advantage. Rafael shows that real businesses are not built on heroics. They're built on systems. Document the work, hire for the bottlenecks, measure what matters, and let consistency compound. Build a company that gives you time, energy, and freedom, not another job. That's all we have time for today. But thank you so much for sharing so much great knowledge. And thank you for coming on the show to talk to our listeners and teach them about some of the amazing stuff that you're working on.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have fun.
Have a nice one. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.